Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive, and we wanted to give you an update on the status of the battle against the coronavirus here in Westchester County. We want to begin on this day, Tuesday, March 24th, with an attitude of gratitude. There are many people that we have to thank who are working very hard every day out there in this society to help keep us safe. We're very familiar with our police and our fire first responders and the work that they do every day. We want to particularly single out our EMS workers in all of the different communities that we have. Some of them are volunteers and do this for love of helping other people, and we're very appreciative for the work they've done. All three of those emergency workers go out and interact with people, not necessarily knowing in real time whether they are infected with the COVID-19 virus or not. In many cases, we try to have that information for them in advance so that they can get proper protection with masks and gloves and other appropriate equipment. But whatever it is, they're out there to deal with us and also to deal with people who have other kinds of health issues or other kinds of incidents. So we appreciate very much police and fire, and particularly our EMS workers. I also want to give a shout out to our DPW workers. They are out there doing the same service to us. In some cases, the sanitation function comes through the local Department of Public Works, and they are reporting to work. They have an essential job to do, and they're serving the public, and we appreciate our DPW workers as well. There are many unionized members of the workforce. We saw yesterday when we talked about the TWU Local 100 bus drivers, but we owe a debt of gratitude to those who work outside of government and inside of government. Outside of government, our firefighters, RWDSU, serves many of the stores that are still open, and those folks are in public contact roles, and they're providing us with necessary services, necessary goods that we can buy, that we need to have in order to stay in our homes and be safe. And those who are in the public workforce union here in Westchester County, we have our CSEA employees, our Teamsters, our correction officers and superior officers, aforementioned those in the police services, parts of the county department, PBA. We owe a great debt of gratitude to the New York State nurses, members of our union. And we have a number of other groups that are providing service every day. We want to tell them how much we appreciate them and let them know that this service is necessary as we continue to deal in this world where we're shutting down large parts of our society, but at the same time, society has to function. We have people in county government that no matter what we try to do and what we focus on doing, that are there every day to deal with treating the sewerage that comes through our process and make sure that it's disposed of in a sanitary fashion. Those who take our garbage and our recyclables and get them to the right environmentally appropriate way of disposal, a host of different things that happens, and we want to highlight and thank all of them. Second major point that I want to make is one that was made by Governor Cuomo in his earlier conversation today. President Trump referenced it last night, and that is the balance between health and wealth. And we're seeing, in essence, at the same time, a double crisis in our society. And I'll deal with it just from the county level, which is the area that I'm responsible for. We have a health crisis. We're told that at any point in time, maybe 14 days from now, maybe 21 days, perhaps a bit longer and perhaps a bit sooner, we are going to see the surge in seriously ill people that will tax our hospital system and our public health system. At the same time, that health crisis, we also have an economic crisis, and it's a real crisis. I've talked to small business owners. I've talked to individuals who own entities. They've had to lay people off. Their economics are in free fall. They may not be able to maintain their business. I've talked to people who are unemployed in a host of different fields, certainly in the restaurant business, certainly in the hospitality industry, hotels. All of these industries are hurt very, very hard by this. There are small barbershops, beauty salons, nail salons, where people work and where people own a business and invested their life savings in it. And this downturn in the economy is not a joke. It's a real problem that we all have to deal with. The question is, what is the most responsible way to deal with these issues? Right now, we don't know that we've seen the roughest of this yet, and we're pretty sure we haven't. And when we talk about numbers in a few seconds, you'll see that there's still a rise in the number of cases, and there's still a rise in the number of people that are hospitalized. We have not seen the worst yet of this contagion. And it's very important to understand that we cannot solve the wealth problem, the economic problem that we have, if we try to go back too soon and we wind up with people getting seriously ill, spreading the disease over an even wider group of people, and winding up with those that die amongst us. We are a compassionate society. We do not believe, as the governor said earlier, in disposable people. And that's been proven time and time again. You'll recall what happened on 9/11, where we had emergency workers, we had firefighters going up those towers to try to save people, and they saved thousands of people that would have died if they hadn't put their lives on the line, and many of them lost those lives to save other lives. We saw that in the anecdote that goes back 30 years ago, if you recall this, and I do, when a small baby Jessica, who's now a grown woman, baby Jessica fell down an abandoned mine of sorts in Texas. And all night long, people were around the top of that mine trying to figure out how to get baby Jessica out. There was energy and effort put in to saving even one life. So the individual lives are important. We don't write those people off. We don't see a mine disaster and just close up the front of the mine and say those people are lost. We try our very best to save those people as best as we can. And that is the situation we're in now. We have human life that's at stake depending on how this contagion expands. We're told by the scientists, not by political science, not by calculating what might happen in a future election, but what we have to deal with right now. Science tells us that we are on the front end of this contagion expanding. And if we are rational, intelligent people, we will do what we have to do to reduce the amount of that contagion. We can't stop this virus because we do not have a vaccine and we do not have an antiviral to fight it on the back end. If science brings that to our front door anytime soon, we'll all rejoice. But most of science tells us that we could be as much as a year away from an antiviral treatment. And to believe that it's just around the corner is to fool ourselves. And at worst, to cynically tell people good news without being able to back that up with facts and with truth and with science. So our local government, our county government, and as we work with the municipal governments of Westchester County, we are erring on the side of caution. We're erring on the side of social distancing, and we're erring on the side of more testing. This county has had more per capita testing for COVID-19, to my understanding, than any county in the United States of America. We may have been the first county to have had as large an outbreak as any, although we're not going to be the worst, but we were the first. And we're seeing this in other parts of the country. There are parts of the country that are slow to catch up statistically because they're not testing the way we are. We have a Glen Island facility, and the county was happy to contribute that parcel of land for testing, where we've had almost 2 weeks of testing on that site. Westchester Medical Center has set up a testing facility. We've talked about that before. St. John's in Yonkers now appears to be preparing to put together a testing site as well. There might be a walk-in testing site. There's testing going on, as it was since the very first day of this, by our public health teams and the county Department of Health nurses working alongside the state Department of Nurses going out and doing in-home testing. And these nurses are day after day after day applying tests in homes. They're fatigued at the end of the day. They put themselves in contact with this disease, and they protect themselves as best as they can. But even one little mistake, and they might catch the disease. So they're really doing us a public service that we can't calculate. All of these things in testing give us higher numbers than we would like to have. But at least we're not fooling ourselves. If there is a path forward, and there must be a path forward, because all of the businesses that are being hurt badly in this economic situation, they do need relief. They do need protection. For this, we look to Washington, D.C. It is the federal government that has the resources that no state has, no county government has, no local government has, to be able to help us deal with the problem in the immediate level, to hold the line as best as we can until the contagion is passed. Now, there's two ways to look at this, and I've heard them both expressed. One of them is that this is not a big deal. It's going to be over before we know it. Let's get back to business. That's one theory. And the other theory is this is serious. We have to address it. We have to defeat it. It may take us 2 months, but when it's over, we must have plans in place to be able to revise the economy. That latter path is reflected, as I understand it, by Governor Cuomo's New York Forward program. And he put two very, very, very capable people in charge of that, Steve Cohn and Bill Mulrow. And Bill Mulrow is a former Westchester resident, former resident of Bronxville, a person with extensive business background in a host of different areas, as well as governmental experience. Bill's a friend. And we look to New York Forward as a way to work. We are going to work with our economic development team, Bridget Gibbons, Deb Novick, Shari Asher, a host of different people to work closely with New York Forward to lay out a game plan that will make sense, and not only for Wall Street, but for Main Street. And Shari Asher of our team is in close contact with all of the Chamber of Commerce's, all the small businesses in this county, as well as the work we do with Marcia Gordon and the Business Council of Westchester, Michael Ramita and the Westchester County Association, our friends at the Business and Realty Institute, any of the major business entities that are out there. And we're going to try to bring these things together under the banner of New York Forward to deal with our economic problems. If the federal government can do what it can do financially, and we hope that they'll negotiate a package that will be appropriate, we are going to have to restructure the economy to get it going again, but we have to deal with the health care issue first. So if there are two paths in the wood, and one of them says, let's go this way and pretend that it's going to be over in 2 weeks and we'll be back to business, and by so doing, we wind up respreading the contagion, or the other path, the New York Forward path, which is to rationally lay out plans and be prepared to implement all of the things that we need to do once we know that the contagion is passed. We're going to choose the New York Forward way, and we're going to work cooperatively with our state government, with our local governments to try to make this happen and to make it rational, because human lives are correct. And I'll give you one way we can do it. Today is Tuesday, and I guess they call it Takeout Tuesday. Now, my friends know that I tend to eat out a lot. I don't have this waistline by accident. But the bottom line is there are many businesses that are just hanging on by a thread. And if you can take out on Tuesday and on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, if that's appropriate to your lifestyle, I urge you to do that. Take out Tuesday, go out, the hamburger that you might have sat down and enjoyed inside the restaurant, order it to go, take it home, have it at home with your family, but by all means help these businesses survive at whatever level of survival they can so that we can see a brighter day when this contagion is over. Let us talk a little bit about what the numbers are. We've heard this morning the governor announced that there was 25,665 cases in New York State. That's up a dramatic amount from yesterday. And in Westchester, we've now jumped up another 1,000 cases to 3,891 total cases in Westchester County. That is the second largest in the state behind New York City. We have Nassau County, Suffolk County are in our vicinity, and they're much larger counties than we are, so we have tested more positive cases than they have, but we think that's because we have more test sites and more effort to test. And we think that that is one of the key tools we have, is to test as many people as we can, find out where the positives are, have those people isolate, work through the 14 to 21 days it takes to work through the virus in your system. If you're part of the 80% that can handle this and come through healthy, that's ideal. And then if you're part of the 20%, that becomes a smaller total number of people that wind up needing beds in this system. Governor has estimated that statewide we were originally going to need about 110,000 hospital beds to deal with the surge. Now the estimate is that we may need as much as 140,000 beds in order to handle the at one moment surge of many people being ill. 140,000 beds. When you look at Westchester County, under normal circumstances, we have in this county 3,000 beds, 3,017 to be specific, in the individual hospitals that make up Westchester County. The governor has argued that we may need as many as 30,000 ICU beds, where we have statewide 3,000 ICU beds. And ICU, the intensive care unit, is the one when people are suffering severe respiratory issues, when they need the ventilator and they need to be intubated, and they need much greater attention by nurses and doctors in order to survive. In Westchester County, of that base of 3,017 hospital beds, we currently have 160 ICU beds. If that Westchester County number of almost 4,000 cases winds up with a hospitalization of 20%, you can see already that we're talking about 800 additional people that will hit at a very severe level where we only have 160 ICU beds. That's what this surge means. That means that there are people that are ill to a degree that we don't have the hospital capacity to satisfy. And even if we had sufficient number in Westchester County to deal with every Westchester resident, we don't set up barriers at our borders. If we see our brothers and sisters in Rockland County are ill and they don't have sufficient beds and we have additional beds, then those people are going to be here. If we have people in the Bronx that can't get sufficient beds, they're going to be here. We're going to do what we can to save lives wherever we find them. And I think it's important to understand that is what the surge means. The surge means that you have 3,000 beds and you have 5,000 people that need beds. That's the problem you face. That's what you see on television in Milan. That's what you see in the Lombardy region of Italy. And those are part of the wealthier parts of the Italian peninsula. That's what you've seen in China at the peak of its contagion. And that's what we want to try to avoid happening here. So when we talk about the battle between health and wealth, they're both very important. But this economy will not rebound if we have massive loss of life. The confidence in the government at every level will be shaken. The financial markets will be shaken. We need to show rationality in the way we approach this. From a Westchester County perspective, we have a small portion of the puzzle. We have made available to the state the county center for additional hospital beds. If we have 3,000 in the county, we're not sure how many capacity can be in the county center, but whatever that is a step in the right direction. But that may not be enough. We may find that we need additional beds. And so we're still surveying with the state areas that are appropriate for additional hospital beds, and we hope that will make the difference. In terms of the Westchester County numbers, our numbers for today will give you the top 10 communities, and they generally track the population in each of those communities. Now, you know that New Rochelle has been the leader in the number of cases because the original testing priority was to a cohort in Westchester that were exposed to our first patient, index patient. The index patient, by the way, now is off of a ventilator, is talking, is sitting up, is starting to regain normal health. He is an individual in his early 50s, so he is young by the standards of those that are most vulnerable to this. And so we're very encouraged by his recuperation to this point, and we pray for his full restoration. And the good news is that that will be the path for many to most of the people that are hospitalized. But our numbers right now are skewed to New Rochelle because of that particular testing that went on very early in the process a few weeks ago. So right now our numbers are as follows for the top 10 communities. New Rochelle has 225 cases that we have tracked at this point. Yonkers is second at 191 cases. Now, Yonkers' population is roughly 3 times the size of New Rochelle, so if the Yonkers number exceeds the New Rochelle numbers in the days to come, that will probably be reflective of population in the same way that over time Nassau and Suffolk's numbers will exceed Westchester's because of population. Greenburgh, which is the second largest community, counting all the villages, now shows that they are in third place with 115 cases. But of that 115 cases, there is a breakdown between Greenburgh, the town, which serves the unincorporated section, for which there are 61 cases, and when you aggregate the cases from the 6 villages in Greenburgh, that's another 54. So Greenburgh and its entity is 115, but counting the villages, each one of them, each have separate distinct numbers of patients. Mount Vernon finishes fourth at 81 cases for today. White Plains City, 65 cases. Portchester has 45 cases. Now, Portchester, according to the census, the last census 10 years ago, has 30,000 people. We've all argued that Portchester was probably the most egregiously undercounted community in Westchester County. We believe the population is much greater than 30,000 there. 45 cases is a significant number for a community of its size. Scarsdale has 38 cases. The town of Eastchester has 35 cases, and once again we deal with this quirk of government where we have an unincorporated section of the community and then villages within the community. Unincorporated Eastchester has 35 cases. When you add Tuckahoe and Bronxville, which are villages within the town altogether, the overall number in Eastchester is 51, 16 cases of which are trackable to Bronxville and to Tuckahoe. And we have in Ossining Village 35 cases, and Mount Pleasant has 30 cases, and Yorktown has moved up to 30 cases within those communities. There is one community, jurisdiction that has no cases, and that is the village of Buchanan in the northwest portion of the community. These numbers are not statistics as we're checking the NBA standings as to which team has won many games. This does show you the circulation of the contagion, and I think the important thing to see is that when we first started tracking where the contagion expanded to, we were focused on New Rochelle for the reasons I've mentioned previously, the original patient, the index patient, and so forth. But now we're finding that in every corner of the county there is some presence of this. Where there's lower population in places like Pound Ridge, there's one documented case. These numbers do have a day lag, 2-3 day lag from the state, so the actual numbers on the ground may be slightly higher. We are staying about 2 to 3 days behind the state as they have to check patients and verify that they've been informed before they release the numbers to us, where we aggregate the numbers, and then in specific we alert our emergency services people, so when they're dispatched to the door, they'll know whether the person has the virus or not. But these numbers do help give you some picture of what we're dealing with. As we deal in the practical world of where we are, We are working, as I've said, at the county center now. Department of Health, State Department of Health people are in order to reconvert what is otherwise an arena for entertainment and sports into a temporary hospital. We are dealing with looking at how to implement the various executive orders that the governor has issued. The governor resides the authority to make some of these societal decisions, and when he has put into effect decisions that would reduce the number of people that can be in the workplace, close certain types of businesses, those of us in local government, counties, towns, villages, and cities, are responsible for enforcing some of these laws. Our county attorney, John Nona, has worked with the local village and town and city attorneys or corporation councils to understand how best to enforce these things, which will be enforced through the county police and the municipal police. We encourage you to do your best to try to follow these things. These are practical instructions about social distancing and washing your hands. We don't want police to make you do things. That's not the way we work in America. We work on voluntary action. But the governor's mandates are not options. They are requirements. And the purpose of the requirements is not to take away our personal freedom, but is to protect our personal health, so that as much as we are independent people, we realize there are certain things we must do right now to avoid this contagion from spreading. And if it saves the life, it may not save our life. It may save the life of a neighbor that we come in contact with. It might save the life of a person that we consider a friend that we might otherwise interact with. So all of these executive orders, we're looking at it and we're trying to follow through on it. One of the important executive order elements that I want to add to it is pharmacies are prohibited from selling two particular types of products that have recently been speculated in the news. Now, I confess, I am not a scientist nor a medical person. I hope I pronounce this right. Hydroxychloroquine. Hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine itself are two particular products that have been used as anti-malarial drugs in the past. And there are those in the science world that have speculated that the combination of these drugs might help fight the coronavirus. That has not been proven over the course of time by the scientific community. We heard Dr. Anthony Fauci on television sort of dismiss this as being a miracle cure that could come. I don't believe, as an elected official with no background in science or medicine, that I should get on this forum and give you false hope and tell you something that I heard that I think might be good, that might turn the corner. I would love to be able to say, and I would think any elected official in any position would love to be able to say, we have found the cure. And having found the cure, it can now be disseminated to people, and we can put the economy exactly back where it was a month ago. That would be something any of us would like to say. But you can't say it if you don't know that it's true. And these two particular products now cannot be bought at the pharmacy by individuals. What happened now, we found there's an anecdote where a couple, I believe in Arizona, went out and obtained this and took it without knowing dosage. They had heard that these had promise and could protect them from coronavirus. One of them has died, and one of them is in critical condition and may also pass away. And we look at that as another example of how science has to drive the train, not just political science, not just what we want things to be. If I had my way, the sports teams that I root for would be championship teams. I would love to enjoy watching the New York Knicks win another NBA championship. But the truth is the truth, and you have to deal with the truth as mature adults. And in this particular case, do not obtain any kind of product that seems to be a miracle cure. If it were a miracle cure, it would be all over the press. It would be out there as something that every doctor would be prescribing. And I encourage you, in the same way that when you get an email that promises you millions of dollars, if this prince from a far land, if you send him some money on the internet or Bitcoin, the same degree of trust you put into that, you should put into any claim that there is a magic cure for this. If there is a magic cure, it will become manifest to all of us. We are working right now in the county with the Child Care Council. We want to thank Kathy Hallis publicly for her work with us. We are trying to make sure that we implement the governor's directive that children from K to 5 have proper daycare services while school is out of session. It was not meant to be a universal daycare, but it was meant to be daycare for those children whose parents are workers that are either first responders, police, fire, EMS, or those that are in the healthcare industry, and to make sure that their parents are available to do the jobs that they were trained for, that we find essential in being able to fight this disease and the outbreak of this. And that daycare effort is going on right now. It is not perfect in every corner of the county. We want to thank the various school districts. They have been thrust into a position of providing a service that they do not normally provide, and those of us in the county government do not normally provide directly. We usually do this through not-for-profit organizations. That is the right and rational way to do it, but we're in the process of trying to make sure we do that. Our social service department deals with those who are the most vulnerable in the society on an ongoing basis, those who are homeless and those who are poor. And we have now tried our very best to reduce the direct public contact between our workers and those people that come looking for our services. There is a website, mybenefits.com, which we encourage people to go onto. We encourage, even though it takes time to do it over the phone, we have reduced staff to be consistent with the stay-at-home workforce effort. But we will do what we can to try to provide those services to people as fast as we can, but there will be a time lag and a delay. And there's no way to do that terrifically efficiently when we don't have the number of people available. Our Emergency Operations Center continues to collect requests from local governments and local institutions for a variety of products, PPEs, personal protective equipment, hand sanitizer, things of that nature, masks, and trying to ship them out to the different municipalities when we receive a load of this coming in from the state. There was a shipment received this morning, and that's going to be redistributed, and we hope to be able to do more of it. We want to mention at every opportunity our call for any nurses, any doctors, any healthcare professionals, physician's assistants, particularly those that may be retired. If you can come back into service, we're going to need you. Please drop a note. Email to LAJC at westchestergov.com. That's the email of Lindsay Jackson. She is serving as the coordinator for all of this information. We remind you that there's a hotline, 211, for general information about COVID-19 questions. There are many people who inquire, so if your question can be put in the form of writing, we ask you to send it by email to COVID-19FAQ at westchestergov.com. That's COVID, C-O-V-I-D, the number 1, the number 9, the letters FAQ at westchestergov.com. You can pose your question in that form, and it will be responded to you. And, of course, you can call 211 for an individual. The information that is available is in Spanish as well as English, and we're looking at other languages that we may need to translate this into for those whose primary language is not English, so they can understand the things we need to. There is a hotline that's been established by the state looking for appointments to be tested. That's 888-364-3065, 888-364-3065. We continue to have our bus system started, as we said yesterday, rear entrance from the buses to avoid direct contact with the drivers of the buses, so that hopefully will help as well. We have a number of different things that we're working on in the economic development area. Our economic development team, as I mentioned, will be working with the state's New York Forward program. If you are a business person, you're welcome to call us. Bridget Gibbons is our point of contact. Her email is bgibbons, Gibbons, at westchestergov.com, and it's her task to try to find as much information of what's available at the state or federal level to help you in this moment of great difficulty for businesses of all size. And we're also going to do what we can to make sure that you have the form you may need to apply to certify that your business is an essential business and continue to function under the governor's executive orders. I don't want to take up an undue amount of your time. For those of you who watch, we certainly appreciate that there are some different issues that are with us now. If there's any other information that we need to report, we will try to communicate through our friends in the press. And we have connected to our friends in the press electronically. They are not in the room with me now because members of the press have to be protected as well. We can't expect them to come out and expose themselves potentially to the virus. So we've done this in a fashion where we'll take whatever questions we've received from members of the press. I'll try to address them now before we part company. So Catherine Chaffee, our Director of Communication, is off camera. She is receiving by email questions from the press. And Catherine, if you'd like to try, I'll do what I can.
Sure. So the first question comes from Jonathan Gordon from News 12. You mentioned that you've offered other public spaces to the state for potential testing sites or mobile hospitals. Where specifically, and is there any progress on this?
Well, the State Department of Health has to make the decision for additional testing sites, also healthcare facilities, if they feel they can get the number of kits and they have the expertise to engineer the tests, and in some cases, depending on the consortium they're in, they have the laboratory space to process the tests. You must remember, chronologically, it was on Friday, March 13th. Today is now Tuesday, March 24th. On Friday, March 13th, we got our first authorization by the federal government for New York State to begin testing. So we've only had this opportunity for a fairly short period of time, where that mobile testing station began in Glen Island. The other sites that we've identified that the county owns, Playland parking lot in Rye, very close to where I live. We also have parking lot FDR Park in Yorktown. That's sufficiently large for these purposes. There are other parking lots that are not within the control of Westchester County that we have identified for the state. They are obviously trying to create whatever mobile testing sites they can all around the state, not just in Westchester County. We believe there should be another site in the northern part of the county. The medical center, which is a privately operated site, targeted for their patients, is sort of mid-county in Valhalla, Mount Pleasant area, and we have the Glen Island site in the lower part of the county. So if it was my druthers, I'd like to see us do something up in the northern part of the county to make it easier for our northern residents. But these are decisions in the hands of the state. We're happy to be cooperative partners, and we've identified those sites, and we're prepared to offer others. I'm not going to go through the private sector sites because that's a matter of private discussion between the state and who owns the other sites.
Next question, also from News 12. They're getting complaints about golf courses being open when private ones are closed. You mentioned yesterday you plan to keep them open for now. Are you reconsidering at all?
No. We're going to keep our golf courses open through the week. We'll take a look at what kind of volume we get over the weekend, and we'll make sure that at our golf courses we have social distancing. Let me re-explain what I said yesterday. And I know why people are upset about this. Golf seems to be an elite sport compared to kids going into a playground for recreation or people playing basketball. But the functional reality of golf is it is not a contact sport. To play the game of golf, you do not get close and impersonal contact the way you do if you're playing touch football, the way you play soccer when there is contact in soccer, the way when you play hockey, you have direct contact. Golf is a sport where an individual interacts on his own and her own, and the people that they're competing against acts within their own sphere. So as long as you properly space at the tee box, you properly space at the green, you use protective hand gloves when you pick up the flag to open up the hole out, you can golf, and you can do that with safety in mind. Safety is the issue. Now, private golf courses, and for that matter, public golf courses are not always open this early in the year. Many of the private golf clubs haven't opened up because it's still a little early in the year, and also because in a private golf club, they're looking for the profit that comes with the food and beverage that goes alongside the golfer's experience. If you've ever been to a golf outing, or if you have golfed with your friends, usually you might stop, have a cup of coffee before you go out on the course, and then after you play a round of golf, you go back to the clubhouse, you might have a meal, you might have some drinks. That is part of the profit structure of the membership club or the per fee club. The public golf course, people will drive up, get the clubs out of the back of their car, put it on a cart, or carry it themselves with a little wheeling device and go off and play a round of golf. It's less expensive to do it at a public golf course, and a different option for a person who wants to play golf. So while people might feel that golf is an elite sport and you should shut it down, and how come you don't have the opportunity to do some of these other sports, it is to me the same as bicycling is. If you get on your bicycle and you bicycle a trailway or around our parks, you're not interacting in direct contact with other people. It's a good exercise. If you want to jog or hike, if you want to walk, and you can walk with family members in close quarters because you're members of the same family, you socially distance, but you're living together and you're already in each other's direct path for things. It's important to understand that we're right now, as we shut the society down, we're either stuck in our places of residence or we have no other place to go. None of the normal entertainments are up. Bowling alleys are closed, gyms are closed. There's no theater, there's no movie theater, there's no Broadway theater. There's no sports, there's no entertainment of such to watch. And the mindset, the mental stamina that it takes to get through this does mean that you have to have some outside recreation. So the fact that we have 6 golf courses at our county parks that can provide that for those people who want to play golf. Now, we're still in the month of March. The weather was very nice over the weekend. I don't know what it'll be like in the days to come. It might still be a little cold for golfers. I myself am not a golfer. I'm told that golfers will golf in almost any weather that they can plausibly play in. But we think it's not a mistake to keep it open. It is the right thing to do. But every entity makes its own decision. The private golf courses make a decision based on their membership, and they make a decision based on the kind of profit they need to get from a golfer's interaction, which is not just greens fees, but the ancillary spending that they do. And we think it's right for the sake of recreation. It is not a recreation for everybody. Not everybody bicycles. Not everybody runs. Not everybody hikes. But we want those options to be there. As soon as we can open up other elements of our parks and recreation, we will do that. We're closing right now children's playgrounds. Now, that's difficult to do. Every little kid wants to climb things and want to go down on slides and swings. But the act of little kids interacting with physical product where they could put their hands on it, and if there's something on the on the device, they could pick up the virus. We can't sanitize constantly as would be necessary to secure the health of little children. So that's why we close the playgrounds. And it goes back to what I said before. It's rational decision making, not based on emotion, not based on ideology, but based on what is practical, what is the best way to keep people safe. That is why we made this decision to keep the golf courses open, to keep the trailways open, and at the same time to look at other elements of our recreation and close them if we think we can't secure them from the virus.
Okay, last question from News 12, then we have another one from ABC. What do you think about the guidelines on construction? Should projects continue to go on, and are employees considered essential? Are those employees considered essential?
Well, the governor has decided, as he's gone through the category of essential employment, that construction is essential functioning and has not made any restrictions on it. I've determined that as the state makes decisions on these things, I'm not going to try to second guess them. They may be privy to information that I don't have. I make the assumption that in any business that is still essential, there's an effort made to social distance. There's an effort made to clean work surfaces behind those individuals who perform those functions. And if function A is considered essential, function B is not, my job is to try to implement that which has been laid out. I presume that this governor has shown his leadership for all to see, and I think he's getting a very positive response in general. He's making these decisions, and we back them up. There are certain decisions that I get to make within the assets of the county government I just described in terms of parks and so forth, and there are other ones where the county has a situation, and we try to make the rational decisions. And just as in the last question about golf, there are people out there who think I made the wrong decision based on what they know and what they think. I've just explained my rationale, I think, in some detail. I'm sure there's a rationale at the state level for why construction is considered still acceptable to go forward. I'll accept that for now, but I do know that all of us are assessing as we go along what's happening in real world terms. And if it turns out that a week from now, 2 weeks from now, the surge hits us in full force and we start to see in our backyard what we see on television from Italy and China, we may make decisions to shut things down that are still open now. We're making those decisions based on what we know, and I think in the issue of construction and the essentiality of it, if that's a word, it's a decision made at the state. We'll honor it and respect it, and we'll see where it takes us.
Okay, and the last question we have is from ABC7, from Tim Fleischer. They've confirmed some supermarket workers at some supermarkets have tested positive for COVID-19 in the county. How do shoppers protect themselves and their food supply, and will you advocate for food workers in all stores to be tested?
Well, I think you have to look at what our testing capacity is and what the priorities are for testing right now. I would advocate for universal testing, every man, woman, and child. If we had enough test kits, I would universally test everybody, because if we knew what everybody's status was today, then we'd be able to take the right action. Food workers in a grocery store are important. Food workers in a deli are important. The people who work at a gas station are important. If they clean the pumps or don't clean the pumps, you might put your hand on a pump and pick up COVID-19 from that. You might pick it up in any number of different situations. There are a number of industries that are determined to be essential, for which people are still working, which means they're still potentially able to get the virus. So what I would advocate for is wherever there is, under the protocol we have now, whenever there is a person that tests positive, that the people who are in immediate proximity to them, if their work is considered essential and they have to go to work, then we should test those people with some degree of priority. Now, does that person get more priority than a woman whose husband is diagnosed as having COVID and she's living in the same house and she wants to know if she's positive as well? That's for the healthcare professionals to draw those lines. But I would certainly say if we've had any worker in any work session for which setting for which essential work is going to continue to happen, if one worker is tested positive, then the other workers around them should be tested. And the reason why that doesn't happen right now is not for lack of desire or because the protocol doesn't say in an ideal way we do it. It's for lack of sufficient test kits and because we have a long queue line of people that need those tests more urgently. I would certainly think food workers deserve it, but I would probably argue that a hospital worker is of a higher priority, certainly a higher priority than me. When I hear that United States senators were tested and they didn't test hospital workers, I think that's a mistake. I don't think you should jump the line for reasons of power or wealth. The rationality should be based on the amount of public contact. So with that, we've answered a few questions from the press. You've been very gracious by watching. We will try our very best to communicate with you. Last night, I had the opportunity by phone to engage with 6 of our different municipal governments to provide information, answer questions. I intend to do the same this evening with another 6 governments. This is designed to keep a line of communication between the county, the town, the village, and the city governments. We are partners. We are all local governments in this. We're also working with the state in a host of different areas. The state has a much wider area to be concerned about than just Westchester County, but we're certainly advocating for our county. And we look forward to working with the federal government. We think the federal stimulus efforts are essential, and we hope that the federal government can do what they can do on things like making sure ventilator production is at the highest peak that it is possible. We are in this together. There's no appeal to partisanship here. There's no appeal to demographics or geographics. We're all Americans. We face this, and we face this within the rest of the world that faces it as well. I just heard where the Olympics were now postponed to 2021. If that isn't an example of worldwide impact, then I don't know what is. We often divide ourselves in different categories by religion, by gender, by race. But in the final analysis, we are all part of one race, and that's the human race. And that is the way we have to view this, as a united front against a contagion. We will overcome it, but we will overcome it by discipline and by rational thinking. Thank you very much for watching. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. Have a good day and be safe.